Many people say that they want to write a book, yet 9 out of every 10 people who start writing a book never finish it, leaving one of their biggest dreams unfulfilled. So, what is it about the 1 in 10 people who do finish writing their book? What do they have, and what drives them to complete their books, their plays, and their songs? Welcome to the Editor's Desk, where we explore their writing experiences, their motivations, and their struggles. And now, here are your hosts, author, writing coach, and self-publishing guide, Lynn Everard, and author, Louise Gomez. It's Thursday at 5:30 p.m. in sunny South Florida, and you're watching the Editor's Desk. My name is Lynn Everard.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Editor's Desk. My name is Louise Gomez. Thanks for coming.
So have you ever had an experience or been on the verge of an experience that you knew would change your life, but as you were thinking about that experience and thinking of walking into it, you were really nervous? There was a part of you that was really excited about what might happen and how your life would shift and things would change. But there was a part of you that was just as afraid of that happening. And you battled those two things back and forth. Well, if you are someone who went through gratitude training yeah. and you went through part 1, it's very likely that you had our guest as your trainer. And so, Louise, you went through that program, you remember?
I sure did. I did not have Chris for part 1, but I had someone else, Ray Blanchard, but I can exactly identify with what you're saying because it was like the fear of the unknown, like what is this? What am I going to experience? Like I am clueless, right? So right. I feel like that unknown is what has us fearful, right?
Right, we don't know what's coming. Part of us knows it's going to be really good. And part of us is looking for the fastest escape route out of the room.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, like, where's the door? I gotta go.
And so, would you do us the honor of introducing our guest tonight?
I certainly will. I'm so excited to talk to Chris DeSanti. A lot of people know who he is. I just finished his book, The Urban Mystic, which I have to tell you was a quick read. It was a fast read. I read it in like a day and a half, I think. But it was the type of book that I feel like can be used over and over again because it's like I want to read it and reread it because there's so many nuggets in here. I'm actually going to read his bio real quick so I can do him some justice and really properly introduce him. So Christopher DeSanti is an international transformational trainer and educator of higher knowledge, a seeker of this knowledge since childhood. He participated in Native American shamanic teachings throughout his late teens and was later drawn to the teachings of the Masters of India. Christopher, who is known as an urban mystic, has spent over 2 decades studying, meditating, and reflecting on the words and practices of his rich lineage. His encounter with A Course in Miracles, combined with his teachings of non-duality, enabled him to help other seekers discover the cause of the suffering of their own lives. In 2008, he began facilitating his own satsang-style classes and continues to hold private classes each week. After attending gratitude training in 2011, a transformative 3-part course, he went on to become an international trainer after 3 years of intense immersion in the training. He was fortunate to learn from 2 pioneer trainers, both of whom were instrumental in creating the work and who are standing members of the Transformational Leadership Council. So welcome to the show, Chris. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks. It's really great to be here with both of you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we're excited. You know, it's one thing to be one of your students and go through the training with you, but not everybody knows the depth of you and all the things that you've done leading up to that. And so would you, like we talked about this, but you have a really rich background in terms of your studies and your growth and your learning and your ongoing
Practices.
work as a seeker,
Yeah.
right? So, and this is difficult because this is like asking a mom which her favorite child is. But I'm going to ask you anyway, and that is, of all of the transformational work you've done on yourself, what aspect of that stands out to you the most?
It is a tough question, because it's a journey, really.
Yeah.
It's interesting sitting with both of you and talking about authors. And, I remember my mom will make a joke. I was really young, like 3-4 years. I would come up to my mom and like, teach me how to read. Teach me, I want to learn how to read. So early on, it's funny, I was an athlete. So I would read books on high performance as an athlete. It was a really high-ranked basketball player in high school.
Yes.
It was funny. I was talking to someone this week about it, and it was my whole life. I lived, ate, sleep, breathed basketball, and I made it to pretty high notoriety in the state of New Jersey at the time. I was a sophomore in high school. I was one of the top 10 players in New Jersey, one of the top 100 in the country.
Nice.
And I was just getting burnt out. I literally, long story, I got injured, and I was bringing a book in for a teacher, and I opened up the book, and I was miserable at this time in my life. I transferred schools, left my friends, and I opened this book up, and in a page, my life was never the same.
Wow.
So I literally, within 1 week, was like, I don't want to play basketball anymore. Moved back, and that was when my spiritual journey started. So if you ask me, it's difficult because I used to cut school and go to the bookstore. And so it was like that type of thing. Even when I was in college, I wouldn't even read the books for my courses. I would do enough to get by as a student, a B student, but I was obsessed with teachings like Ram Dass, like the teachers from India. If you were going to ask me, it's really difficult because the trainings have been so impactful in that Course in Miracles. So it's tough. I
It's like a compounding of everything, right?
Yeah, it's really
Layered.
difficult. I wouldn't
Yeah.
select one of them. They all gel together
Sure.
and have similarities and differences. So it is tough. I will say this: love Course in Miracles. I've been facilitating it every week for about a third of my life, almost 15 years.
Wow.
I love the trainings. They're different. All these are different ways, I feel like, of pointing at the
Sure.
same inherent truth that we're all, seeking. So I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, but I
Yeah.
think you get, an idea. Yeah.
But I want to personally thank you. And the reason being is because I did gratitude and then I enrolled my family, and I have 3 boys, and it completely changed the trajectory of my boys and their lives and future generations because of the training. So that training was so impactful that till this day, it's something that is used. It's something that is they're still cognizant of, and it's just a level of awareness. Like once you stretch, you can't go back, right? So I
Totally.
want to personally thank you for that because you played a huge role in that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So definitely want to thank you, and I really do love the book because, especially the end. What I loved about the end is you had like these little vignettes. I was like, this is perfect. These are like little hacks. Like, okay, I got to put my glasses on. Hold on. Like, okay, borrowed time. And you just had like all these little hacks, like instant shift, freedom from conflict. I was like, these are so amazing because it's like in a page or a page and a half or less, you kind of gave like a hack. So I really loved that. And I also really loved how it's just something like I could pick up and just keep reading because I feel like no matter how many times I pick it up, I'm always going to get value from it, honestly. So I want to thank you for doing such a great job on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I this to me, this had more nuggets than
It
a
did.
McDonald's chicken factory, right? It just really amazing. So I picked out several things that really
I did too.
caught
You
my
go.
attention.
Awesome.
And one of them is a statement that says, I am truly rich because of how I see life, not because of how I can control it. And that really hit me because seeing life as an attitude, right? a mental attitude. And when you don't have that, then it's almost like you have to resort to control, because to get what you want or what you think you want. So, and I know every one of these things is a rabbit hole waiting to be explored, right? But would you talk about that for a moment? Just this idea of, if you really understand, your perspective, your attitude about life really does remove that need to be in control of things.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think early on for me, I started looking around at the world and people, and I'm like, there's got to be another way here, because it seemed like no matter how successful, no matter how rich someone was, and I've seen many types of people, whether it's billionaires or, all kind. It just seems like everybody has the same type of battle going on. And no matter how much they can attempt to control their life, when they put their head on the pillow at night, there's always a risk. There's always, you don't know what's going to happen the next moment. I remember my teacher in India is like, no matter how skilled you are, you could be the greatest fortune teller. And people pride themselves, and I can predict it. Nobody knows what the next moment's going to bring. So that in itself puts all of us in a situation of, well, okay, I can do everything in my power to try to control it, but as we've all learned, it just doesn't work.
Right.
So where do we actually have the power? Well, the only place really is in our mind and how we see and our perception, which you see this as, there's all kinds of books. I remember reading Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz in the Holocaust camp, talking about the people whose mind was connected to a higher purpose. They were able to even live in the most hostile environments.
Right.
So I remember a teacher in India said once, the mind is everything. It'll make a hell out of heaven and a heaven out of hell.
Yes.
So then I started saying, like, wait a second, here it is. And I've been to India. I've seen people with nothing. And I come back to, we're in Boca Raton, South, Palm Beach County, Florida, like one of the best places on the planet to live. And people look miserable. And then somebody in India can have no legs in the middle of the highway on a piece of wood with wheels on it, just smiling, like they're happy as can be.
Why is that?
Well,
please.
It's a great...
Like, what is up with that? Because it's so many people who go to India, come back, and they say that same story.
And it's not just everyone in India, because there is people there. So what is it? It's this understanding that I think, especially in the West, we've got this idea that acquiring, having, equals being. Like, if I get enough, I'm finally going to feel safe. I'm finally going to feel secure, and it doesn't work. And as you know from the trainings, I bring that to life. It's who I'm being. It's not what I can get. And most people think that by acquiring and doing and getting, that will translate into being happy, being fulfilled, being free, being powerful, and it doesn't. It's what I bring to life each moment through my perception and my mind.
Yeah, that was a big shift for me, the be, do, have. I was like, wow, I've had it backwards for years.
Yeah, most people do. It's just they haven't learned this.
It's powerful. I did also have something I wanted to ask. Hold on. I wanted to touch into. You said, when I stopped searching for what I thought I wanted and listened to the inner voices, life showed up in a way greater than I had thought. So my question is, how can we speak into, like, let's say people who are right now, they're struggling to pay rent, they're struggling to survive, and all they're thinking of is right here, right now, I got to fill up my gas tank, right? So I ask that to myself, and I read this so many times, and I'm like, it's amazing. How can we put it into practice?
It's a great question. And I would say for me personally, I've lived through all of that. Right. So I was very fortunate to practice these things when I didn't know how I was going to pay rent or didn't know how I was going to eat, because I started so young.
Right.
So I by the time I was 16, I was really hardcore into these types of teachings. So, I mean, I've been through everything of I don't know where the next meal is going to come from,
Right.
to I'm making a lot of money, to I've
Right.
lost a lot of money, to so what is it? It's if you study any modalities or teachings, whether it's things like the secret to getting rich, or the science of getting rich, think and grow rich, manifestation technique, all of them. I mean, everyone basically says something similar. And the similarity is we have a way of tuning into something that's way vaster than our conscious mind. So let's say you're like, how do I pay rent?
Yeah.
The mind starts to go, well, what
Yeah.
does this mean? What do I do? Let me
Right.
figure this out. But there's this magic in life, or I don't know what to call it. It's this beautiful
Magic,
gift where you've all probably experienced this. I can't tell you how many times in my life I didn't know how the solution. It just showed up. It was like, and it wasn't even what I thought it was going to be. Whether it's the person shows up and says something, or money shows up, or so there's a way of tuning into, whether you call it cosmic intelligence or the universe, the universal law, the universal life force, that the challenge is it's about the mind's important, but about tuning into something, whether you call it intuition,
Right.
being guided.
Right.
And most people have lost that. So they get so caught in this. And let's say it's rent.
Yeah.
If we start to trust, right, that the universe, the entire universe is supporting me because I'm part of I'm part of
Right.
all of it. So
Right.
what does that look like? You still need to do things, right? You still need to take action, but it starts to work in forms of ideas, right? Maybe I should do this. Maybe
Right.
I'll call this person, but what about this? And we're open to so many possibilities, but we're not open to those possibilities when we're stuck in the
Right.
so the goal is to get out of the first.
Yeah.
And even if you're still in it,
Yes.
to do the best to lean into, okay, please guide me. Whether
Yeah.
it's higher power, light, whatever it is, it's like following that call, because it leads you into amazing, amazing places. And the understanding that every challenge, it contains within it a possibility of something greater.
Yeah.
So every breakdown has a possibility of a breakthrough. It's the law. Yes, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It does, absolutely. And what's really interesting was when I read your book and you talked about your trials and tribulations with your whatever relationship or basketball or whatever it was at the time. It's so amazing because in that moment, did you feel like that same thing, like, oh my God, how am I going to get out of it? And did you realize that it was going to lead you to where you are today, like in that moment, right?
Yeah, so yes and no. So the no part would be like I'd have no idea where I would end up.
Right.
Because you just don't know. It's, I
Right.
mean, looking back, it's amazing. Like, wow.
Right.
In the moment, though, it's funny. I found old journals from when I was really young, even going to India the first time, and I would read them and go, that's how I feel even today. It not the understanding is the same or similar, let's say.
Right.
But there's a maturity or a ripening, they would call it in India, that
Sure.
happens. It's like with fruit.
Yeah.
It ripens over time, so that it's less and less would it come. Or even when it would come over time, I go, all right.
You're aware of it.
I get this now. There's a breakthrough on the other side of this. The Course of Miracles would call it a miracle,
Right.
shifting from fear into love, right? So it's like, all right, I've been around this game before. So, and then what starts to happen is, even when those things come up, it's almost like they're welcomed, because then it's us. It's literally like reclaiming a part of ourself, our power, our connection. So every time that happens, as time went on, it would always happen, the shift, and then it was easing into it more and more over time, and then all these amazing things started happening. You know? Yeah.
So one of my favorite quotes actually ties into this beautifully, and that is, it says that there is a difference between what I want in the world and the deeper yearning that wants to come through me. And because so often we're focused on getting what we need to take care of all of these things we have to take care of in our lives.
Right.
And while we're busy doing that, we're not the conduit for what wants to come through us, right? And so if we let go of the what would we call it? It's not a yearning at that point, it's a want. And then switch it over. So would you talk about that a little bit? Because I really like that.
Yeah, you know, you could see that for most of, there's a lot of conditioning from childhood for all of us. If I could just get this, get that.
Right.
And then you start to get these things and you're going, did I even want that? Or luckily, a lot of the things that I was seeking after, I didn't get. It's very interesting.
Lynn says that.
Right.
There's a prayer that you say.
There's an old Garth Brooks song that says, "Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers."
Right.
You just reminded me of that.
Yeah.
So it's this, because if I think, see, there's the trap is if I get it, it's going to fill me up.
Right.
Right. So then now I'm already set up in this, I must be lacking and hoping that this thing that I want will fill me up. But so we flip that and see that we're already filled. Each of us has our own individual journey. So for you, it'll look different from me.
Sure.
So no one's better than another. Everybody has a unique, let's call it like a story, right? You're the main character in the movie of your life.
Yes.
So for me, my whole curriculum and story is going to be very different than yours. So then it's like, well, what wants to come through me? Now, this might be a deep concept for people. When I went to India, I was 22 the first time.
I was going to ask you what age you were.
20
So you were young.
22. I got sent home the first time.
Oh, wow.
Went all the way to India. Didn't have the right visa. Crazy.
Oh, no.
They sent me home. I got my money back. It was right. It became a great story when I got there,
Yes.
though. 9 months later, like I finally made it.
Oh, my God.
Right. So here I am, showing up at some teacher's doorstep. Like, I've read all your books, and let's talk. You know, there'd be 20 people there,
Sure,
people from
sure.
all over the world. And I remember this teacher said something of, you're not doing anything. Like, you think you're the one doing it. And of course we're doing stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a life force that's moving through us that, let's call it, we're co-creating with it, right?
Sure.
I think people can
Yes.
understand that.
Yeah.
So it's, okay, how do I listen to that then? And does that know better than I do? Like, you know, we're talking about that force. Maybe it has a better idea for me than I do. So then it's not a question of, it's really a question of how good can I listen? And then you start to listen, and it's like we're being guided all the time. And if, you know, what do you say? Guided by what? That power which is running all of it. I don't know what's
yeah.
beating my heart right now.
Exactly.
It's not really hard to find if you look.
I agree. Wow. What else are you gonna? Anything else?
Well,
I had another quote actually.
yeah, go ahead.
So you wrote, which I thought was really interesting. I loved it. This quote. You said, "We must shift from a context of lack to one of abundance, and then we will realize that we have enough, that we are enough, and that truly winning means that we are all winning, all races, all religions, and all genders." I feel like that right now is like a powerful statement, and I love that. I love what you wrote. That we all get to win. Can you speak into that quick?
Yeah, it's a very challenging idea in what's happening around the world. And, you know, we say in the training, like, creating a world that works for everyone. And
Yes.
what does that start to look like? And, you know, we're doing the best that we can with where we're at right now.
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest gifts that we could start to do is elevate our own consciousness. Because until we do that, we're always going to be subject to, you know, I'm better than you.
Sure.
I need more than you.
Right.
It sets up that dynamic of survival. And then you look around the world, and that's on one level. How we truly, I believe, ultimately transcend to this idea would be individually, each of
Yeah.
us healing.
Agreed.
I would call the dark cornerstones of our mind, whether it's separation, greed, conflict. It's like, I can't expect the world to be at peace if I am continually harboring conflict.
Right.
So where do I start? I could start with my family. I could start with the people I don't like.
Sure.
Or I could start with the people that really piss me off,
Right.
right? People who cut me off in traffic, like, you know, because it's, you probably heard this, and there's no point in, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's something like, there's no point in preaching unless your walking's going to be your preaching.
Absolutely.
So you need to walk it. And how do we do that? It's really simple. We just wake up, go into our life, and just look at all the places of conflict and war within us. And if everybody started doing that more and more over time, what would happen? And you're starting to see some of it.
I feel
on the
like you're right. I feel like it's slowly starting to shift.
You'd start to see families heal, like you're talking about. You'd start to see generation after generation, people cleaning up the messes from people that came before them.
Right.
And we would just, over time, raise our consciousness. And that's ultimately how true change will be made.
Definitely. Thank you for that.
So, Chris, we know you've have a lot of things going on in your life. So, this is the part of the show where we'd like to invite you to tell us what's coming up for you. What is there? Are there things happening that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, the book, you can get the book on Amazon. The book was written years ago, so it's been great. I wrote it like memoirs, so people can get it on Amazon. Urban Mystic. The trainings, I would say people that are on Facebook. I just started a Facebook group recently called
nice.
Everyday Freedom and Mastery.
Yes, that's right.
Join that. There's a training coming up, a training center. I do trainings at two places. One called Redesign Trainings, which is virtual out of North Carolina.
Nice.
It's a nonprofit. And then friends are starting called Absolute Mastery, which will be in October in Lantana, Florida.
Nice.
That'll be in person. People can contact me, Chris at ChristopherDeSanti.com, to get updated or get on the email list. I send out emails each week of
Yes, I get them. I read them.
writings, and I love to write. So what's going on in the world. I make a magical brew with my wife, Black Plague Gold. It's a
Good
brew
stuff.
that helped me for years when I was training and avoid getting sick. So check that out, blackplaguegold.com. And then I do private coaching and consulting for certain types of people, and you could reach out to me, email me if people are interested in that. That's basically, I do Course in Miracles for those, an advanced class, and then there's a beginner Course in Miracles. You can get that on my website, ChristopherDeSanti.com. There's a membership for ongoing classes. So
That's online, the Course in Miracles.
I do it
virtually?
I do it every Thursday.
Okay.
We do 1 hour. We go through the whole book. It's very advanced. So I suggest people do a beginner class, which they can get online, which is pre-recorded classes.
Perfect.
So it's a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
And I know they just got back from, you guys were in Bimini, right?
Yes,
I
swim
saw
with the
some photos.
dolphins.
Nice.
Yeah, it was.
That's
I will
fabulous.
do that
Chris.
one day. I will do that.
It's magical.
looks
We're
like
so
it.
delighted that you joined
Thank
us this
you so
evening.
much.
It brings back some terrific memories.
It sure does. Thank you.
And it's exciting that you're starting, bringing this back.
Thank you for doing
in a
that.
form. And so because there are a lot of people out there that didn't hear about it until it was too late.
True.
And then they said, I want to do that. And it's
Right.
like, well, you can't do it right now, but you'll be able to do it at some point.
so-
So we really want to just extend our sincere gratitude to you for being on tonight, and just because we know you've affected so many people, including
many
us.
people.
And so we want to share with you what we have coming up next week, because one of our guests next week has also gone through gratitude training. And our guests next week, they're our very first musical guest.
Oh,
They
yeah.
go by the name of Lumazone, Alex and
Amazing.
Sissel. And they have fantastic music. We
Amazing
know you'll
music.
enjoy it. We're going to talk to them about how they write their songs, and then they're actually going to perform
Yes.
a song or two for us. So you definitely won't want to miss that.
Definitely. Magical voices.
Absolutely, the harmony, the blend.
Soulful.
They hear the songs as they're thinking of them, I guess.
know.
But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Until
Good night.
then,
Until
have a
then,
great week.
Have a great night. Thank you. Even if you have never written a book, you are still an author. In fact, we all are. In every moment, each of us is writing our own unique story that we call our lives. Because many of us are, as in the lyrics of the Dan Hill song, Sometimes When We Touch, writers still trapped within our truth. If this is you, why not start writing your thoughts in a journal? It will help you get your truth on paper and could just be the start of your own book. And don't forget to join us here every week for the next edition of The Editor's Desk.